Hi, this is Caroline Leavitt and my allergies, so excuse me. I'm the co-founder of Mighty Blaze, the initiative that began the day of lockdown to get writers and readers and indie bookstores together. And today is like perfect timing because, you know, when Oprah announces her book club choices, the people who get the choice know it like a year before, but nobody else knows it. And so I knew I wanted to have Ann Packer on because I had read this book way back when it was in galleys. And I thought, this is tremendous. I love this. I love Ann's work. And then I just found out yesterday that she is Oprah's book club picks, which is just completely amazing. And it's just, I just want to read you what Oprah said about it. This beautifully written story is going to get you thinking about some things that really matter. The story leaves you questioning the obligation of marriage and the difference between male and female friendships. And one of the most significant of questions, how do you want to spend your last days? So let me tell you a bit about Ann, and then we will talk. So, whoops, hold on while I pull up my thing. Ann Packer is the author of 5 previous works, including The Children's Crusade and The Dive from Clausen's Pier, which received the Kate Chopin Literary Award, among many other prizes and honors. Her short fiction has appeared in The New Yorker and in the O. Henry Prize Stories anthologies, and her novels have been published around the world. So, this particular book is about a couple. A long-time married couple. And when Claire gets a kind of terminal cancer, she has a very strange request of her loving husband, Elliot. She wants him to leave the house. She wants to spend her last days with her friends. It's an extraordinary book. It's just gorgeously written. I want to read you some of the praise. The New York Times said it's a suspenseful and radiant reckoning with love, sorrow, and the everlasting mystery of death. And let's see what else we have. People magazine said a moving meditation on love's many forms and how a marriage can surprise you right up until the end. Washington Post said Packer sketches the nuances of their love with a devastating sharpness, poignantly exploring the challenges of facing death with grace. The Boston Globe said readers already know Ann Packer for her acutely sensitive novels of families in crisis. Some Bright Nowhere takes on the anguish of a long married couple whose deathbed conversations raise profound questions about love, commitment, and sacrifice. Before I introduce Ann and let her speak, I just want to tell everybody out there, you have a comment section on the right, and you don't have to look at it at all. Anybody who has questions or comments for Ann, pop it in the chat, and I will get to it. I've also made it easy for you to order Ann's book. We love people to go to their favorite indie bookstore, but I've put out bookshop.org, and I've also put up a lot of interesting tidbits about Ann. So now I'm going to shut up and let Ann speak. Thank you so much for being here, Ann, and congratulations about the Oprah pick. That's like winning the lottery. It's incredible. It's just incredible. So before I talk about the book, I just have to ask you, because I happened to watch, they taped you getting the phone call a year ago, and you kept saying, "Oh my God," which was just so charming and wonderful. And have you stopped saying, "Oh my God"? Does it seem like a real thing now?
It does seem real now, finally. The "Oh my God" phone call, yes, they recorded Oprah's end, and she got my side as well. Yeah, I think I said "Oh my God" for a few weeks, but it settled in. It wasn't a year; it was 3 months. And
only 3 months. Oh, I thought it was a year.
No.
Oh, still hard to keep that secret.
It was hard to keep the secret. I mean, you get like this amazing, wonderful news, and you can't tell any of your friends. You can't tell anyone really for a long time.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about the book now. The thing that I love about your writing so much is there are so many things about what I call moral choices, which are, if you do choice A, there's a benefit, but there's also a cost. But if you don't do choice A, there's a different benefit and a different cost. So you're just stuck between these thorny choices. And I first saw that in The Dive from Clausen's Pier, which broke me in the best possible way, about a young woman. She's thinking about breaking up her engagement, about her fiance, and he's showing off, and he dies, and he becomes paralyzed. And we, the reader, expect her to, oh, she's going to stay home and take care of him and nurse him back to health. It'll be a happy ending. That's not what you do. Instead, she decides she needs to go to New York by herself. And the novel just sort of unfurls her choice, why she made it, what she decides at the end. It's just brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Some Bright Nowhere is like one of those, I call them punch in the heart stories. It's exactly like that. Like, what would you do if your spouse was dying and you had a wonderful marriage and they wanted only their two best girlfriends there and not you? So I hate the question that just about everybody asks, which is, where did you get the idea? But what I like instead is, what was your thinking like that sort of haunted you to fiddle with this idea on the page? Because I read somewhere that you actually started this novel something like 10 years ago. Is that correct?
No,
No. Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay. The thing that gave me the idea, which I agree with you, I hate that question, happened almost 20 years ago, but I didn't start writing this book until a few years ago.
Okay, and there's so much in this book about the characters. I mean, Elliot is frustrating and he's real, and people have some not always totally kind things to say about him and his personality. But Claire is also a little frustrating at times, though we deeply feel for her because she's too tough. She's exhausted. She's dying. She can't spell it out for him. Claire, what I found so fascinating was Claire feels that her need not to have him at home has nothing to do with her love for her husband. That, when I got to that point, I stopped reading and I started reading everything I had read before again to try to figure out why doesn't it? And I wanted to know, did you know that from the start, that it was a very different reason why she did that? Or did it sort of organically emerge from who Claire was becoming on the page?
I think you're referring to her statements early on after she said, this is what I want. She says, I love you. This has nothing to do. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, because late in the book, there's a bit of a twist that we don't want to talk about.
Right, we don't want to talk about.
Yeah.
Right.
So I would say that, you know, it really, I make it up as I go along. I don't plan it all. But at the same time, I can't say that I'm surprised by things because I don't have an expectation that I know what I'm going to write.
Oh, that's a great quote. That's a great quote for our writers, is you don't have an expectation what you're going to write.
No. Okay. And so I think from the first few sentences that I wrote about both of them, I knew a lot just from those sentences about what their marriage was like and their love for each other. And so I guess you know, sort of the broader answer to your question is I wasn't surprised when I got to I knew I wasn't writing about a woman who was so fed up that finally at the last minute she's getting rid of the guy. That was not the story. No.
That would be an Ann Packer book. I want to talk about, you know, there's so much now in the news about the loneliness of the male in America and how guys do not have friends like females. And I mean, if you go to any restaurant or movie theater and you go in the ladies' room, women talk to each other. We talk about everything. We talk about the movies, the food. Somebody might be crying. We offer advice. Men don't do that. I thought it was really interesting that Claire chose to be with her girlfriends. And I always thought it was really interesting that Elliot suddenly begins to get together with some of his guy friends to cook. So I wanted to know, I wanted you to talk a little bit about that in the context of what's going on today, and also why cooking? which was a wonderful thing for him to do, a wonderful healing thing.
Well, I can tell you how that came into being. That's one of the few things I can answer about when people say, why did you do such and such? This is one thing I have an answer for, which is I don't normally share work until I've finished a full draft. But for various reasons that we can come back to, after about 40 pages of writing this book, I really was uncertain and lacking in confidence that I was onto something. So I asked my husband, who's also a writer, to read those pages and just, tell me. I said, I really don't want to hear a lot. Just, should I keep going? And he said two really important things. The first thing was absolutely keep going. And then the second was, I think Eliot needs a male space to spend time in.
That's great. That's great.
Such a great note.
It's a great note.
My first thought was, yeah. My second thought was, oh no, is he going to have to go to a gym?
I love it that he did.
My third thought was, hell no. I don't remember when Cooking Club, again, it's coming out my fingers. I'm not planning it, but as I was writing toward finding him a male space, suddenly there was this dinner club that he's in with 5 other men, and they trade off cooking for each other, and then they talk very analytically about the recipes.
I loved it because, the other thing he could have done is he could have gone on and played pickle. I don't know what guys play, basketball or whatever, and you didn't do that. And cooking is sort of, people think of, well, of course they think of chefs as male, but cooking clubs are usually women. So I loved that. And I loved, the recipes were great, and his going out there was really great. I also love that Eliot seemed to be moving from a caretaker role, which he had been doing for so many years, to actually taking care of himself in a new and an unexpected way. And again, I think that's one of the things I've been reading about lately, that men take care of things. They don't go internally as much as women do. And I also loved that he became creative. He actually became creative. So I wanted to ask you about, the title is gorgeous. I mean, I'm so it's a cover, actually. When I first saw this in Deal Makers, and I think with Publishers Lunch List stuff, and I thought, oh, that's a great title. So as someone who's notoriously bad with titles, and I know how titles are difficult, how did you think of this title? Where did it come from? And how long was this your first and always title?
Very much not my first and always title. For a long time before I had really shown it to anybody at all, I thought Days to Weeks. That was my idea. Days to Weeks was going to be the title. That was the title I used when I started my agent search, because writing this book coincided with my previous agent retiring. So I had to find a new agent, and I sent it out under the title Days to Weeks. And once I found my agent, who's fantastic and wonderful, one of the things we talked about as we were getting it ready to go was, what's the most dynamic, appropriate, resonant title we can find. And she really didn't think Days to Weeks was it. Thank God. I totally agree with her. And so we threw a lot of different things around. We had lists. We talked about the title like The Caregiver. But then I think it was my husband who said, that sounds like a thriller, which immediately, like, once you hear that, you can't do it.
You said, no, you can't do it.
And then another title was Tender, because of the pun with tender.
Right. Okay.
And we were sort of like, okay, we're going to figure this out. It's going to be Monday, and let's spend the weekend, just noodling over it. And Sarah, my agent, found this poem with this phrase in it, and she just said, what about some bright nowhere from this poem? And I was perfect. Like, before I'd even read the poem, I was like, yeah, absolutely. And then I read the poem, and it was even more perfect. So I just I just am very much in her debt for any number of reasons, and also for the title. And also she introduced me to the work of an amazing poet whose work I'd not been familiar with before this. So it was
Who is the
wins.
poet? Who is the poet?
A poet named Christian Wyman, Wiman.
Right.
And this poem comes from a collection called Hard Night that's published by Copper Canyon.
That's a good title too, Hard Night. I want to talk about the cover now. What's so gorgeous about this cover is it starts white hot. You know, it's like red and fire, and it sort of moves up to this soft, comforting blue. Was this your idea? Was this intentional? Did they show you other covers? I mean, it's a beautiful cover.
We had a different direction at first that didn't feel right. And I said, how about, kind of more like a watercolor type thing? Not with anything at all in mind. In fact, I said not anything referring to a landscape, but just something more watercolory, because the original one was a bowl of blueberries, which has its resonance with the text, but it didn't feel right for the cover. So once they sort of went back and did the second round, this was one of 3 or 4, and it was sort of like the title. I saw it and I was like, oh, that's gorgeous.
It's perfect. It's one of the prettiest covers I've seen. I want to talk about your starred Kirkus, which says, the final pages are as deliberately unresolved as the rest of the novel. Packer's unsparing gaze would be hard to take if her characters weren't so believably, messily, hurtfully human, harrowing but brilliant. That's a really unusual and fabulous description, actually. Do you feel that this describes you? Do you feel that this is true? That
I hope that my characters are, what were the 3? Hurtfully human. What were the other 2 words?
Hurtfully human, believably and messily. Hurtfully human.
Slowly and hurt. Yes, absolutely. I love that. I mean, it's not for me to say whether it's true, but I love the description. And harrowing but brilliant. Like who's gonna
but I mean, you go there. I think I read an interview with you where you said you wanted to write it with a knife or like a knife, and as soon as I heard that, I thought, oh my God, that's exactly her style. She goes there where other writers would say, maybe I'm going to soften this up a bit, but you don't. And that's what makes it so brilliant.
Well, thank you. The knife thing, actually, it was funny because as with so much of my process, I'm not thinking analytically. I'm writing very intuitively. And even saying like, the book, I remember saying to some people, it's going to be like a knife. And I didn't stop to think, what are you talking about? And at the end, I realized that what I really meant was slim and pointed. Not so much like it's cutting like a knife, but it's shaped like a knife. At least I think that when I came up with that, oh, slim and pointed, I was like, yeah, that's what I mean.
I love it. I also want to mention that when you said the blueberries, I remember seeing an Instagram from you where you just had a blueberry muffin sitting on a plate, and you said, oh, this is so symbolic. And I thought, oh, okay. But now I know why, because of the cover.
There are blueberries in the novel. In fact,
it's when
scones play an important role in the novel.
That's right.
Ultimately.
I also saw, I haven't had a chance to look at it, but you got Michael Chabon to write a playlist for you. Tell us some of the songs he chose, and would you have chosen them yourself?
Well, I couldn't. That was the thing.
He had to do them.
Well, you're familiar with Large-Hearted Boy, probably.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So he invited me to do a playlist. And I was like, love music couldn't possibly do this assignment. I don't think musically. Michael does. And he's famous for his incredible playlists. And he had literally, at the time that invitation came in, he had literally just finished reading the book and had responded very powerfully to it. And I just said, Michael, would it be fun for you to make a playlist based on this novel? And, he was choosing songs sort of before we'd even gone back to Mr. Boy, the large-hearted boy, and asked him, what he would think of somebody else doing the playlist for me.
That's wonderful. So you don't listen to music at all when you write?
Oh God, no, total silence. No. Do you listen to music while you write?
You know what? Sometimes I will have just one song and I will play it over and over and over again because of the emotional context, but I can't, because then I have to stop and I have to listen to the music and it pulls me out of the world. So no, I really don't.
Yeah.
So I also want to know, this is kind of a weird question, but I always think like this. Your characters are so alive. I always wonder, where are they now? How are they doing? So I want to ask you, how is Elliot doing these days? And then I want to ask you, what's the heroine of the Dive from Clausen's Pierre doing? Is she still designing clothes? And how is she? I mean, you made them real, so I have to ask.
Well, I think my answer is going to be really annoying, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Only you know that. Only you know what they're doing, because we're talking about your experience of the book.
That's great. That's a really good response. The thing I also loved about this book is it's really about not just what people believe marriage is supposed to be, how they perceive other people's marriages, and how marriages can change and pivot off. And it's kind of, nobody really knows what goes on in a marriage, including sometimes the people in that marriage, which I just thought was really remarkable, which again brings me back to the same question I always had. We're not going to give anything away, but did you know as the novel was progressing what your characters knew about their marriage and where they thought it was going and what was going to happen?
I'm silently tossing around the possibility of being annoying again.
Oh, that's all right. I love it. It's great. It's actually comforting to hear that you don't have to. I like that.
My characters are a collection of sentences, and the sentences are what I know about them. And until it's a sentence, it's not really part of the character yet, or it won't be. I mean, do I have images of them?
Right. I was going to ask this my next question.
That don't connect to actual scenes in the book. Not really. I could push myself to come up with them, but it's not. The characterizations are just in the writing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a good writerly answer. I want to know, so are you able to write it all now, or are you just busy going all over the place promoting?
I would love to already have started a new book, but I have not.
Do you have ideas for that? Oh, you probably won't talk about it because you don't show your first draft. See, I listen. You don't show the first draft until this. So scotch that question.
Well, I also think that talking about an idea rather than developing it
is terrible.
Is just, I think it's really dangerous, because I think you can kind of take the air out of something before you've even put the air into it.
I think so too. And also, you don't want other people's opinions at this stage. I mean, it veers things off. I always want to know, like, as you became a writer, what was the worst advice that anybody ever gave you, and what was the best?
Wow, let's see. Well, I don't know if this was not damaging advice. It was awful advice. So it may qualify. When I was in grad school, I had an instructor who was just a very different kind of writer from what I was then or wanted to become. And I had this fellowship, which meant like I was a top dog writer in my program. And I think he was just really confused because he didn't like my work. And finally he was like, let's go to lunch. And over lunch, he said to me, Do you ever think about the words you use?
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know what I said to him. And then here comes the advice part. Be aware of interesting words. Be open. Listen out for interesting words, and then annex them to your vocabulary. So I would say that's the worst advice I ever got.
That's terrible advice. That is absolutely, and you know what's really funny about that? Sometimes when you're reading a book, if there's an odd word in it, the first thing I think about is, oh, the writer's showing off. They're using that word to show off. That is terrible advice.
Yeah. Style is style. My style is very plain, and his style was not very plain. And
so did you send him an email with the notification of your awards?
He's dead.
Oh, he's dead. Okay.
So no.
Hell no.
I'm sure he's aware though.
Okay, that's great. And what was the best advice?
So the best advice actually came from the same time period, which I guess makes sense. You know, you're open to advice in grad school. The best advice was basically revise. I mean, I think in my first year of grad school, most of us had this feeling that you wrote a story and then you presented it to a jury, and you know, you got the jury's verdict. But this instructor basically insisted that we just do it again, revise it. And she structured our workshop so that we did 4 drafts each of 2 stories over the course of a semester. It was a ton of work, and it changed my relationship to how I write and how I think about writing.
Yeah, I mean, I teach at UCLA, and my students were surprised when I told them, you know, you have to revise. And I even showed them a file I had in my last novel, which was like, you know, I must have had like 25 revisions. But that's when it's over time. That's when ideas percolate and come up. So that actually is great advice. I have one more question for you, which is, what do you do for fun? That's a question because everything right now is just so fraught in the world that I want to put out a little joy and hope. What makes you happy?
Writing. I really, when I'm happy in my writing, I'm as happy as I ever am.
What about when you're unhappy in your writing? Then what do you do?
Then I'm really unhappy. Then I, you know, worry. Then I think, oh my God, am I ever going to find my way back to my happy writer self? Am I ever going to find my way back to being in a manuscript so deeply that I don't want to stop at the end of the day? And that's my favorite part of life. And you don't, you know, it's rare. You don't get it that often. But, you know, I had a real low period before I wrote Some Bright Nowhere. And my biggest concern was I need to find my way back to that kind of experience.
It's like an altered state of consciousness in a way. And, you know, this flow, this zen, and when it happens, it's just completely amazing. I want to say before we end that I thought this book was so completely profound. And it does 2 things that is my highest compliment that I can think of a book. One, it broke me in the best way. I mean, I know you know what that means. It broke me in the best way. The other thing was it made me see the world differently. And I began to look at my friends differently and their relationships differently. And that's what real art should do. So thank you. Thank you so much. So a few things, like for everybody who is listening here and was too shy to comment, you can go to this is recorded. It's going to be on our Mighty Blaze YouTube channel forever. So you can go there and comment if you like, and you can watch it again and tell your friends. Don't forget bookshop.org. This is the book. It's truly phenomenal work. Some Bright Nowhere, bookshop.org. Thank you all so much for being here. We'll see you next time. And Anne, just stay on so I can thank you properly.
Well,
And
thank
everybody
you.
else, we'll see you later.